recognizes Yale, some alumni around that are not typically around, and it's like, why not do a panel with some of our alumni? And when I first heard the idea, I was like, this is such a great idea, and here's why this is a great idea. First of all, HCFA is just over 8 years old. This is our 9th year, and that means that we, 2012, 13, 14, 15, 16 are out there. They were involved, heavily involved, invested kind of in the formation of the ministry, and now they're out there, but their hearts are still, at least in part, right here, because they invested much. They loved one another. They found faith, some, spiritual feet under them, others. And I want you to know, and they'll say it themselves, they are watching you. They are paying attention to what's happening here. Why? Because they have an investment here. And they really feel kinship. They feel like this is a greater effort. God's done something here that we pray will just go on and on. To the point where Jihei here is going to share at the very end about what the alumni have done. They've organized, surprise, shocker. They've organized themselves and they rolled out an amazing, really kind of plan for years to come that you all may someday be involved in. So there's that value, right? The history of HCFA. The history is right here. It's people. And so I love any time that you all have an opportunity to meet some of these amazing people. That's bonus. Secondly, there's mutual encouragement here. As I mentioned, they saw God be, faithfulness. They experienced it when they were here. They're experiencing it now, and so are you. And so as you get to know each other, as we share a little bit and share stories, we're sharing stories about God's faithfulness. What has God done? What is He doing? And then, we can even brainstorm and pray a little bit about what will He do? What does He want to do in this place? And then lastly, looking back, wisdom, the difference between knowledge and wisdom, right? Knowledge you gain in the classroom, maybe you pass a test. Wisdom is usually hard-earned. It comes through experience. It comes from walking through something, navigating through, and then especially with the Lord, and on the other end, we might come out with a little bit of wisdom. And so they are further along than you all are. They have been exactly where you're sitting. They're out there, and in a way that when you're in high school, visit us or you're checking it out, you're curious, you're talking to older folks and saying, what's it like at college? I'm sure many of you, especially juniors, seniors, are like, what's it going to really be like on the other side of graduation? And they know. And so they're going to share a number of things along those lines. I'll add one more about it. This just makes me happy. So that's another good reason to do this. I'm just making. So without further ado, I'm going to ask them to introduce themselves, and then a couple of questions, they'll answer them, and then we'll open it up to you all to ask any specific questions you have. I'll start with you, Aaron.
Well, does this work?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'm Aaron. I'm class of 2014, formerly of Cabot House, Social Studies concentrated. And I like the pleasantries out of the way. After graduation, I decided to come back to Boston. In fact, it was a little bit of a strange reason to come back to Boston. I didn't have a job, I didn't have anything like that. But there was this girl I kind of liked. So it was kind of a little bit of a learning experience going improvising through the job hunt after graduation. I ended up in consulting in local technology, and I work a lot in intellectual property disputes and writing expert reports for that. Looking at going to college, law school. So any of these seniors who are applying now, we could be classmates. Let's form a study group. I'm ready.
Well, I was just going to joke that we loved really well in college. So I'm Jihei. I was in Leverett House. I graduated in 2014. I concentrated in government, and I did a one-year AmeriCorps fellowship, and now I'm a nonprofit consultant. Someone asked me, was that somewhere else? So I've worked with museums, I've worked with libraries, anywhere from theaters, dance organizations, advocacy organizations, health, you name it. It's been really great, and I kind of fell into it, so I'm happy to share today. Oh, you have a mic? Meet the married couple share.
Hey guys, I'm Brian. I was class of 2015, Lowell House. I studied history and literature, and I loved rowing and freezing my butt off on the shells for the interpreter team. Now I'm in Houston, Texas, the great nation, and I'm a consultant there for Mercer, where we implement HR software for clients. It's a neat little puzzle, not the most interesting stuff though. And yeah, excited to be here.
Hi everyone, I'm Kamara. I just graduated in May, so I know a lot of you. And I was in Quincy House, and I was pre-med, and I studied sociology. Yes! Yes! Sociology is really a great field. So right now, I'm taking a gap year for medical school, and so I'm doing quality of care breast cancer research back in Michigan, where I'm from. And also, I've done some research in El Salvador, doing some interviews there in my free time. So yeah.
Harris, class 2015, studied government, and I was pretty up. And after graduation, moved to Chicago, did investment banking. All right. And now I just started a master's program at the school, just across the way.
All right, thank you very much. First question for our panelists is this. We leave this place with some expectations and with some idea, some concept of what it's going to be like. And this is going to broaden this a little bit. What is it really like compared to those expectations? And you can answer professionally, you can answer socially, emotionally. I would love to just get a first kind of read from you all, like surprise or maybe not so much. Come on, you said you were kind of interested in this question.
I'll go for this
Let you start.
I definitely think this year so far has shown me that God can be really faithful even when you're not, centered in a Christian community like HCFA. So I joined HCFA freshman fall and was pretty active all 4 years. But then going home, I go to a smaller church with my family. It was my grandfather's church, and there aren't as many people my age or just as many people at all. But I definitely have seen God be faithful, even in what feels more like isolation in regards to my faith, or just not as social as I was used to in college. So I think, I think my expectations have definitely been surpassed just in the process of applying to medical school and being rather terrified of the rigor that it entails and the focus and the demands while also having a job. So I definitely can testament to God being faithful and growing my personal relationship with Him, and also just even bringing 1 or 2 people into my life who I know I can reach out to in prayer and in person, even though I'm back home.
So a few things. One, it's just really practical stuff. So things that surprised me included you have to have first month, last month's rent, security deposit, and broker's fee. So if you want to live in an apartment, it's like, I don't know, even like $800, $1,000 a month. You need to have like $4,000 up front. So that was surprising. Other things that were surprising include doing my laundry is such a pain in the butt, so I just don't sweat anymore. Other things, cooking and doing the dishes, guys. I'm just getting real here. It's rough because you go to work, you come home, you cook, and you're like, gosh, I have to do the dishes and brush my teeth and fall asleep. So those things became really real for me after graduating. Other things, more spiritually, at work, you have much less flexibility around your time. So I work a modified 9 to 5. Sometimes I get in a little late, I get out a little after 5 sometimes. and you have fewer opportunities to talk about Jesus and your walk with Him. And one of the things that I find life-giving is sharing about our Lord, and in just like a really real way, and just have fewer opportunities to do that at work, and that really puts it on me.
A second question. The question is going to be cover a number of angles, right? And you can return to them, or we're just going to let a little shotgun approach here for a moment, but then we'll open it up. Discerning God's will, right? That's a question that everyone wrestles with, and certainly sophomores declaring, etc. A little further down the road, looking back, is there a sense of confirmation now? What was the process like for you? Have you learned a little bit about how God speaks and how this works? Does anyone want to speak to that?
Yeah, I feel like through a couple of different phases here. The first thing I would say is, and this is a practice I've tried to put in my life, and I encourage you guys, is just be thankful for where God has brought you through and from, because looking back is always easier than looking ahead. And looking back, I was government pre-med, and I'm at a divinity school. I work in finance. So how does that all make sense? Only with God is that even a coherent picture. But I can say that in prayer, and I talked to someone recently about internal discernment and external discernment, and through both of those, I can see how all that made sense now. And so it kind of explained a little bit. Internal call, thinking about hearing the Lord, and that's something I had to grow in when I was in HCFA. You might hear people at your church say, "Oh, the Lord told me this," or maybe your mom talks like that. My mom does, and what does that mean? And so growing in that practice, learning how to sometimes when you're in prayer, stop talking and hear what God's saying. That's helpful. That's internal. God, what do you have for me? But sometimes externally, it's helpful too. Having someone like Don in my life, and a lot of my friends that are even here tonight. What do the people who love you and know you see in you? And I think having both of those, having God speak and having the scriptures and having a prayer life, but also having people who know you push you in the right direction, that's really helpful in discerning. And that's something I've had to do a lot as a part of this kind of non-traditional journey.
I feel like we could talk about this on 4 or 5 different areas after graduating and just in the 2.5 years that we've had since graduation. One is just in terms of a job search. So I came out of college. I thought I was going to go to law school right away, right after college. And then I decided relatively late in the process I didn't want to go to law school, so I stopped applying. I was in the middle of a thesis, and so I'm like, I can't really start looking for a job now. So I waited until after my thesis was done, and then everybody had already hired. I was kind of late to the game, and so it took a long time for me to find a job, especially when in Boston, when I lived in Ohio for the summer. And so there was a relatively difficult process, and I would say that I was very much, doubting that I was maybe something was wrong with me, or the process that I was doing was wrong, or there was something practical, or something like that. And it was a very difficult time, and those sorts of difficult times do exist. But I think coming through it, one, I actually got a job, thankfully, eventually, and it ended up being in the exact sort of place that I wanted to be in. It was in the same industry, mobile tech. It was consulting. It was great. It paid well. Everything came together at the right point, and that really kind of made me think that it's not just what you're doing, but it's also the process of how you get to what you're doing. And I think that I've seen that play out in my life in ways that I very much see and feel emotionally, just compassion in ways that I didn't feel before. Okay, so that's one. Moving over. So I got married to this girl not too long ago, but in order for that to happen, you have to come to a decision point in terms of proposing and things like that. And that was something that was a little bit angsty. I don't know if, well, anyway, I'm sure none of you are anywhere near that process. But it's something that's difficult. Coming together and making a life choice can be difficult because it's for the rest of our life, for better or for worse. And so that's a difficult process. That's a big deal. And one of the things that we got to do is just going through and thinking really hard about it, praying about it, looking for a sign for the heavens to open, right? And for a voice to come down saying, "Marry Jihad," right? That's what I wanted. And I didn't get that in the same sort of sense that, I might have wanted. But I did get some very helpful advice, a lot like Harris said, from someone who was a little bit, well, actually younger, but was married and so older in the whole marriage thing. And so that sometimes you don't actually know everything. And sometimes you just have to improvise, right? So you look for things that are wise and things that seem reasonable. And if you feel like it's something you want to do, you don't need to be 100% sure necessarily. You need to walk in God's ways and then improvise. And looking back on it, it was definitely a good choice. So it worked out incredibly well for us. I could gush about this for hours. But we'll have to pass.
Very helpful. And yes, we will move on.
Dawn, I'll answer that one too.
Okay.
I think for me, I definitely think of the medical school application process when answering this question. And, I grew up, my mom was a pediatrician, so I always was interested in becoming a physician and kind of realized it was how I wanted to care for people in this world. But, I still had to get in. So it was like, okay, for years I've told people this is what I want to do. But now, it's up to other people, and it is up to God if this is His will for my life to open doors somewhere for me to become a physician. And I think one thing that I've learned about following this journey of applying to schools and going to interviews is that following God's will for you doesn't mean that you have to be perfect in what you want to do and what you like, or perfect in what you think He wants you to do. That it's, following His will and doing a good job and being obedient doesn't mean, having a 4.0 in your GPA and acing whatever standardized test. That there is so much encouragement from God and to keep going on a path that He's set you on, and that you've kind of maybe determined from prayer or from improvising and from wisdom, without, having everything that looks perfect to you, looks perfect to the world. That God, looks at things and He knows what's behind it. He knows what's in your heart. He knows what He's placing in your heart and on your mind. And so that's something that has been, really a joy to find out in this process, that there can be success and there can be a journey towards God's will without being intensely regimented in everything that I do, or without being the smartest person in the room. That there is so much to be celebrated in following God's will and letting it look like what He wants it to look like. I think that's something that I've learned, and I'd love to talk more about that with anybody afterwards.
Very good. The next question is about community, faith community, finding faith community. You all found a community that I think was life-giving and certainly had its moments and ups and downs, but life-giving here. And now you're experiencing, I know you're all intent on finding that post-Harvard, right? So any comments related to encouragement for them regarding now, reflections on your time here, or maybe preparing a bit for those differences? It's just different, right? This is a unique kind of arrangement and setting. Comments about faith community?
Yeah, that was a question. So, Bible courses in HCFA. When I was here, I feel like it was the selling point. HCFA is a very intellectual perspective on our faith, and we're really adamant about that, which I think is what I felt, especially freshman year coming in. And as I reflect on that, as I reflect on small group community, post-college life, and what that means and what that looks like, it's really interesting because, for example, 80% of my small group, I'm pretty sure, voted for Trump, right? I'm in Texas, so it's in a way not a surprise. But to say, hey guys, let's talk about Black Lives Matter, racism, Jim Crow, different things like that, and we'll talk about the fact that my parents are illegal afterwards. The fact that this is so like whoosh, to them is like holy crap, and how that applies to our faith, right? It's just like, oh my god, like there's not even like a theological thing that we're talking about. It's like so different. I felt compared to like Bible study or Bible course, and so I think I'm trying to define what small group means, right? Yes, we want to develop a theological understanding of our faith. It's important. But to what extent can we do that? To what extent when we're in Houston, Texas, with people that range in all types of backgrounds that might not have been educated at Harvard. And I don't know, I don't have an answer, right? It's just like, we're called to love our Christian brothers and sisters, but we're also like, hey, the racism is a real thing too. But like, let's actually like attack this passage, right, and analyze it. And then it's just, in a way, it's overwhelming. So get ready.
I agree with what Brian said, and I mentioned working finance, and these days I work 12 hours, 15 hours, and there was our senior retreat done, and the ministry fellows encouraged us. They said, find a church, like, immediately. And I think and you have to be wise about it, and you have to, be prayerful. But I found a church, I was really thankful for this, like a month in. And, shopped a couple, had some really crazy experiences, but found a really great church that was a lot like what I had experienced here in Cambridge at Aletheia. I went to Aletheia, back at Aletheia. But I think with that amount of time working and doing, it was really important for me to find community. And I found that, yes, it was hard, it was different, it wasn't the same kind of exegetical kind of work. Even though this is great and everything that happens here is real, this doesn't always map onto what happens in the outside world. And so there is a difference, but I joined because I couldn't make them all the time. I joined 2 small groups, and I'm like, please, do life with me, help me, let me talk to you, And so that was really important for me, and I developed kind of my own little HCFA type family in Chicago that I'm really happy to see in a couple weeks. So it can be really good too. It's challenging, it's different, but I think it's really important, and I think from what I've seen from me and my peers, I think it can be a little bit of a make or break thing too, just like joining HCFA or another campus ministry can be your freshman year.
So I realize my reflection may have been a bit depressing. I love my small group, and it's super important. But I was just elaborating the fact that we're so different in a different situation. But yes, small groups, so important. We love each other all the time. We love each other, I promise.
I have 3 things that I want to say. One, small group is nice. I would recommend that you stick it out, even if it's not exactly your cup of tea, for at least a year. I probably went to my small group for a solid 10 months before I felt like I could say anything that was really on my heart. And then I got married and switched groups, so starting over. And so that I mean that sincerely. Find something, try to go every week. And if you're at that place with HCFA, I would encourage you, stick it out for at least a year. If you don't put roots down, no one else can do it for you. So second practical tip is I found Christian community at work. And that took a long time. So there was someone who used to sit beside me. She now moved to Philly. I didn't know she was a Christian. She is. Her dad was a pastor. I didn't know she was a Christian for a year, and we worked together. And I luckily found a director at my company who is a Christian, purely by luck. I found out that her husband is a Christian contemporary artist, and I was like, I'm gonna start stalking him on Spotify so I can talk to her about this. And we pray together every Friday. It's been immensely encouraging, so you never know where you're going to find it. And related to that, I just want to say, you're going to feel a lot of pressure to talk about Jesus at work, and you're going to be getting a lot of mixed messages. There will be a time when it feels comfortable. So I don't want you to rest on your laurels, but don't do it if it doesn't feel authentic to you. So again, I've been at my company for over 2 years now, and I'm finally at that place where I can be like, you know me, this is part of who I am, and I can throw it in there and it doesn't feel awkward. Last tip, sorry. Last thing was, okay, you're not gonna see your friends as often as you used to. So even if you don't remember anything else I say tonight, those people that after you graduate you talk to once a year, or people who you will not have talked to in over 2 years, if you're ever feeling like lonely or down or you need a good laugh, don't hesitate to call them. Don't feel awkward because you haven't talked to them in 2 or 3 years. They still love you, they still want to talk to you, and please, they're still part of your network. Not that kind of network. Well, they could do that too.
Yeah, and that is why GHA is front and center in the alumni board, and their vision involves taking care of one another. One more question before we open up to you all, and this one is a bit of free skate, but I'd love to hear from all of you. Maybe we'll just start at the end, Harris, with you. But the question is, I'm guessing that each of you, tonight is like, I hope I have the chance to share this one thing that for sure with you all, with YFA, right, and with HCFA people. What is that one thing? A little bit of something burning there, maybe a little bit. A word from the Lord, just a word of encouragement, exhortation.
Well, this one I wanted to say earlier. Back to discernment, because that's something I thought about a lot. And if I can just encourage you, maybe you've already gotten this from our panel or somewhere else, but like God is for you, and like in a really deep way, where it's not like He's like, oh, you didn't understand my will? Haha, good luck. It's not like His mission to see you not flourish. And so I think one of the greatest things someone told me senior year of college was, when you're in partnership with Jesus Christ, you're at your 100% potential. Like, you don't have to carry any weight of potential. As Harvard students, Yale students, people expect a lot of you. I graduated without a job. I went home, and people were really confused. Like, what are you doing? Like, why are you back at your house? Upstairs. And like, you don't have to carry that because He's for you, and He has a plan for you, and it's going to be great. Like, I'm really excited. All people I know, people I don't know, just to see what everyone does, because it's a lot of fun. Like, living for God is fun, and if it's not fun, you're not doing it wrong, but I think it can be. And so maybe like be in conversation with you to figure out how you can make it fun.
Yeah, I'm living at home with my parents right now. But I think one thing that I would say is definitely don't give up on investing in relationships in college. I think being a relational person and really try to imitate Christ in that way is something that can really stand out in the world when you're not in a more densely concentrated group of Christians. And so I think that's something that is just very important to prioritize other people and to show that if people ask maybe why you make a sacrifice that you feel like God is asking you to make in regard to time and at work getting to know somebody, point to God and explain what that means. And so I think that's just relevant in college. I think that's relevant outside of college to really, be selfless and put people first, but do that as God is calling you to do it, with whom God is calling you to do it with and for. And just trusting Him in that, trusting that you won't necessarily kind of have a not checks and balances, but you won't necessarily be able to say, oh, I sacrificed last Monday, this Friday, my reward is coming. But you'll kind of learn what it means to truly, be a son or daughter of Christ and what that looks like. And I think in retrospect, that can be a really good feeling and a really just awakening experience.
Cool. Good words. So upon graduating, I read The Power of Habit by some New York Times journalists. And essentially, habits are super important. It defines your life. On your gravestone, when you look back, a huge influence on how people remember you is on the habits you have. And I think there's a spiritual habits or something by a speaker from Nexus that came out too, kind of the lines of that. But essentially, what can I say? As I've been reflecting post-college on the importance of habits, I've realized, in college I had a hard time setting boundaries and determining what I wanted to do, what I didn't want to do. Because when you're here, countless opportunities. Go listen to heads of states. Go to parties. Go to Doxa. Go to Bibles. Go to a lecture on the most random thing you can think of because Harvard has an expert on it. How am I supposed to structure my time? And so in the book, right, habits, well, what matters in life, right, at the end of the day. And I think a verse came to mind, just be still and know that He's God. And I think when creating your habits, how do you do that? And I think, even right now, you guys are in a great position to seek the Lord and personally define what that means for you, right? Whether it's just like, I'm going to go to Bible course every week and speak into some of that, or I'm going to just pray by myself for X amount of time every week, or whatever. But when you build a habit, it's something that's consistent over a long period of time, and I think that creates growth. Essentially, that's what the argument of the book was. Anyway, yeah, my encouragement would be, my word, would be to reflect on your habits, especially the spiritual ones, and how God is calling you to perhaps go build new habits so that you can grow your faith.
Okay, so I almost said something when we were talking about God's will. This comes up a lot. And I feel like until you graduate college, it's been pretty obvious. God's will is for you to go from 2nd grade to 3rd grade, 3rd grade to 4th grade, and maybe you skipped 5th grade. And eventually, yes, picking a college seemed like such a big decision, but you feel like, I'm going to college. And in some ways, after that, the roadmap is much less clear. And so I really want to encourage you to start exercising the muscle of finding contentment in God now, because everything else will and can change. I want to share something. My senior spring, I don't think I prepared as well as I should have after postgrad, but all things considered, things turned out very handsomely for me, so no pun intended. So I kind of lucked out, but senior spring, I'm sitting around and I think, you know what? I thought God brought me here to do something amazing, and I don't know if I've made my mark. I don't know if I've taken the classes I'm supposed to take. I don't know if I'm graduating with enough honors, or if my GPA is high enough, if I've set myself up for that job. And guys, and I kind of felt like I let God down because this is supposed to be this huge opportunity. And God was like, G.A., I was there with you the whole time. Is that enough for you? And I have never questioned if I've made the most of my Harvard experience since then, though sometimes Aaron has seen me do that. And really, I think that is really what matters. You will see a lot of people go into consulting, like people who are here, and finance, and really elite schools, and so many different paths. If you feel discouraged, read lots of biographies. Everybody's taken a different path. And guys, just walk with the Lord. And I'm preaching to myself as much as I'm preaching to you. There's something so beautiful and so lacking in our world, and it's really contentment in Jesus. So that's my word.
I'm just listening. I don't know if I have too much to say, so I'll fall back on my regular standard advice, which is life is pretty short. only been 2 or 3 years, but in all seriousness, it's gone by very quickly. And I think, I don't know if we could all say that. You say so as well. But college is fast, and the next few years are just as fast, if not faster. And so, you know, don't spend too much time worrying and making decisions. But walking with God and enjoying every step of the way is also like that. This is your life. It's not that you're just planning for a future, you're planning for a future job or a future career. Your life is now. So live that way.